Greeting from Cambodia. My name is Thirasat. I am Country Director of Arm Cambodia Rafa International. Arm Cambodia will provide a safe house for the girls who've been trafficking, sex trafficking, and labor trafficking. Not just only give them the safety of staying, but also we provide counseling, social work, and education and life skill to the girls who are needed. But also we're doing reintegration for the girl and empower them to go back to community safety. Also, Arm Cambodia will have another program called Prevention Program. And Prevention Program, we are provide the education of the family and the kids who are at risk. And we want to prevent them before it's happening, sex trafficking and labor trafficking. So we also have a partnership very good with government and also organization in Cambodia. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Suthi. I was born in 1985 at a refugee camp and I grew up in the northwest of Cambodia. Education and job skills are something that I have always deeply wanted for myself and the people around me. When I moved to Phnom Penh to study at university, I started to feel really passionate about serving people who need help. With compassion of education, job skill, and wanting to serve people, I joined the Bloom Asia team. In 2011, I was able to combine my passion of education, job skill, and serving people at Bloom Asia. Together, my team and I work to bring healing, hope, and purpose through vocational training and employment to young women who have faced exploitation and support them to create a better future. As the National Director with over 10 years of experience in the anti-trafficking sector, I hope my learning are helpful for the keynote today.
I'm Putu Dharma Asti. Welcome to my hometown. I began working with Dark Bali in early 2020 as the Program Director. This past January, I was promoted to be the first National Director of Dark Bali as the organization undertook the process of making sure its leadership in Indonesia remain in the hands of Indonesians. Our organization is focused on strengthening and equipping those on the front lines of anti-trafficking in Indonesia, primarily the grassroots organization around the country. We do this through facilitating a national coalition made up of regional task forces, as well as offering capacity building trainings, translating important resources, and working to fill in gaps in the anti-trafficking movement as a whole. We do believe, through collective action, we can counter human trafficking. By combining strength and resources, coalition can achieve greater impact than individual organizations working alone. Thank you. Enjoy the conference, and I hope you all have a good time while in here in this beautiful island of gods.
Yay! Well, it's been 5 years since I've been at an in-person ARAT, which is crazy. So I'm definitely channeling my very extrovert self right now and loving meeting up with lots and lots of people I haven't seen in a long time and new people. So yeah, how are we going to start ARAT this year? With something a little controversial, right? I always say you can say anything with a smile on your face. So this is where we're going to start. And we're going to start around the topic of power and who holds the power. So we're looking at localization and decolonisation in our organizations and the movement. Can we move the slide on? Have I got a dibber, or do I just say, can we move the slide on? I'm so technical. Can I just do that? Oh, yeah, session overview. Fabulous, thank you. Okay, so over the next hour or so, we are going to be looking at the topic and definitions. Oh, I got a dibber. Can I have a pen as well, please? An hour or so, less. We're looking at the topic and definitions. We're going to reflect on the state of our organizations and this movement and our collective responsibility to create some change. And then we are going to hear from these fabulous local leaders here on their personal journeys. Thank you, love. Their personal journeys of localization and national leadership in their countries. And then we have an opportunity to open the conversation out to all of you and to those who are online as well, to ask questions and have a conversation around this. So, and we are uploading some resources that have been recommended by all four of us on the Hoover app. So before I start, oops, hold on, boop. Here we go. Before I start, I actually need to acknowledge we are talking about power. So I want to acknowledge the power that I hold in this room and in this space before we start. I hold privilege as a white woman, an ally born in the global north with English as my first language. And I know that that has shaped a lot of the movement over the last 25 years. And so I want to acknowledge that power dynamic in the room. And I think those of us who hold a similar context to myself, I hope that we can all acknowledge that. And that this is a time for shifting and changing. And honestly, I would rather leave this entire keynote to these fabulous leaders and watch from where you are. But I think that we need to have some honest and hard conversations around this in order to open up this space more. So we're 25 years on. And yeah, it's time for us to have open conversations, to challenge ourselves on this issue. And one of the things that we've done from the very beginning is that we want to grow, right? Each of us, we want to grow in our knowledge and we want to be able to challenge ourselves. And growth only comes through us being challenged. So we need to talk about issues of power imbalance and colonizing practices within not just our organizations, but the movement as a whole. So, between and within our anti-trafficking organizations, we want to acknowledge the dynamics that happen between national and non-national staff and leaders. I think it's about asking ourselves questions in our organizations around how are decisions made? Who is it who actually is making those final decisions? Is it a collective decision? Is it an individual decision? And what does that look like in terms of power sharing in our organizations? If we go a next level up, we look at the boards in our organizations. Who's on our boards? And how does the power dynamics work between our boards and our leaders, especially boards and national leaders? And it's a time for reflection and assessment of, yes, we've come this path, but actually as we move forward, let's have that courage to ask difficult questions, even within our own organizations, and dare I say it, to our own boards as well. And then between leadership and team members more generally. Now, this was actually a session in an ARAT conference, I think 2 or 3 years ago, where it looked at quite disturbing practices within anti-trafficking organizations and the power dynamics, where staff care was discussed as a topic and implemented maybe on retreats, but rarely in the office. And so if we're talking about supporting one another and supporting our teams, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis, away from the retreats and away from those days away? And then, of course, our organizations make up the movement. And so within the movement, with international Global North and local grassroots Global South organizations, which is a lot of you guys here, I often refer to the disparity of what I call my 80-20 theory, which is yet to be proven academically. But anyway, that 80% of the influence and the resources in this movement are generally, and I have spoken to some academics, just not done the research, go to the largest organizations which are representing about 20% of the movement. So 80% of the resources that influence, not just money, this is like, policy decisions and knowledge and all of the other aspects of resources within this movement, which then means that there is about 20% that is going to 80% of the grassroots organizations that are primarily in the Global South, you of whom representing here, doing the work at the coalface. So there is a disparity in the movement that we just need to talk about and advocate for. And so this is why it's important for us to have these conversations in this room where there are grassroots organizations and international organizations and funders too. And that brings us to the big elephant, accessibility to funding, success and funding frameworks and agendas. And it's great that we do have some great donors, thoughtful donors in the conference here, and we're having a session or two, I know, on that. But many of the larger institutional funding frameworks and requirements are challenging enough at any level. But when you have organizations in the Global South that have got English as a second language, it can often be inaccessible to those organizations. And I think that these are something else that we need to be able to speak out. There is a power dynamic between donors and grantees, and it's interesting if you look at some of the academic literature. It's been hard for academics to actually gather information from a lot of grassroots NGOs in terms of their experience of power dynamics with funders, for obvious reasons. And then with allies and survivors. And I know that this topic is going to be covered way better by some of the fabulous survivors that we have got, actually the next session and the rest of the week. But I want to say that as an ally, there are times now that we need to reconsider our position in the movement and step aside more and more to see the critical need for this movement to be led by survivors. Okay, a few definitions. Power. So, we're here. So, these are some of the definitions that I've pulled out, not just from, the obvious places, but different organizations and how they view power, localization and decolonisation. So power, the ability to direct or influence the behavior of others or the course of events. And we have to ask ourselves, is this power over or is this power with? The capacity to influence, lead, and dominate or otherwise have an impact on the life and actions of others in society. And this can be positive or negative. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge that as we look at power. So one of the recommended resources that will be on your Hoover app is a book called New Power. And it looks at a bottom-up power sharing approach. And we see this on a lot of crowdsourcing and a lot of other aspects, even in the music industry, that this is becoming more power sharing bottom-up. And so this is something that we need to consider as a movement is what does our power look like in this movement? Is it power sharing from the bottom up, or is it a hierarchical power structure? Localization. You're going to hear much more from these fabulous leaders, but the process of giving more decision-making agency, funding, leadership, and power to local and national actors. And a process of shifting the power and the resources to national actors and supporting and strengthening the existing leadership capacity and expertise. So again, it's about kind of like stepping aside as the expatriate and really supporting the sustainability of programs in a much more localized way. And decolonisation. And as a UK national, I have not just an individual responsibility on this, but as my nation colonized nations all over the world for hundreds of years, there is a responsibility on a national level too of what we did around the world. And so decolonization is to be free from the rule or control of a power bringing about independence. It's the process of undoing colonizing practices, not just when a country physically releases its power over another country, but also undoing mindsets of racism, sexism, power, and control. And this one, the idea that white, Western people know how to fix another country's issues more than the inhabitants of those countries themselves. This last point is really important for us as Westerners to own up to. I think that, we're not saying that there isn't a space here, but I think that it's too easy to justify ourselves in this space and not to say, actually, we've gone there and we're guilty of that. So those are the kind of the definitions around the conversations we need to be having within this movement. Have I done too many? No. Okay. Joe is laughing at me over there, I know. This is about as technical as I get. Okay, the state of our organizations and the movement. So, as I said, we need to start with challenging our own organizational culture and practices if we're going to see positive change in the movement. It's easy to say, well, those donors up there need to change, or those governments up there need to change, but actually, for any change to happen in society, it has to start with us, right? And so, asking ourselves, how do we solicit feedback from our teams? Simple question, anonymously and safely, where they can be honest. Because if we don't know the state of our own organizations in the true sense of the word, rather than just our own perception of it, we're not even starting at the right point. And I know that for us at Chabdai a few years ago, we had started this, and I remember having this conversation with a lot of the team, and the team were not convinced that this was going to be anonymous or safe. And so the first year, the answers were all very sterile. It's like, yes, everything's great, thanks. And then when they realized that actually it really was anonymous and safe, as the years went on, the comments became more and more honest, and it really gave us a much more kind of like truthful picture of what was happening within our organizations and within our organization, and it challenged our practices and culture. And actually some quite significant changes had to be made on the back of the feedback, the honest feedback that we were getting from our staff. So what does that look like in your organizations, in your teams? The second piece here is a leadership journey of change, which was a research that I did a decade or so ago in Cambodia equally with both Cambodians and expatriates, explored leadership succession. And the top 3 themes, again, this piece of research is also going on the Hoover app if you'd like to trail through 76 pages of my writing. Knock yourself out, but there is a Khmer version in a summary version as well on there, was cultural factors, looking at the tensions between the East and the West, and really acknowledging that we need to talk about cultural differences, and the beautiful thing about cultural differences, and also some of the challenging things about cultural differences, and that one culture is not better than another culture. It's just different. One of the aspects of that was power distance, and there's a scale developed by an academic called Hofstede, which looks at high power distance. And so if you look at the different cultures around the world, a power distance is basically how in a nation you respond to the power difference between a leader and somebody who is a subordinate. So in the UK, the power distance number is 35, which basically means that in a room, there's very little power difference between if you're sat as a director next to somebody who is a brand new graduate. Like you can interact in a conversation where it really tolerates inequality, which I think actually tolerates inclusivity. And then if you look at China, it's 80. So that's very different. Here in Indonesia, it's 78. So we need to acknowledge what happens when we walk into a room as a white person, as a leader, and what that means in another culture. And then gender inequality. This has to be talked about. Within the research, it was acknowledged that actually most of the local leaders at the time were male, which is even all the more reason why I'm so happy to have these three women sitting up here. But it was really interesting. Some of the research pointed to that if a woman was in a leadership role, she is perceived as thinking like a man if she is strong. So that a woman could not be a woman in leadership and still have her female traits. It seems to be that she would have to be like a man if she needs to be in leadership. Things are changing, but it also referenced a lot of the women's roles within society. And I know, having spoken to other Cambodian women in leadership, they've said we have to have two personas often. We have the persona that we are a director in the organization and we are able to make decisions within that framework. And then when we go out to the province to see our families, we have to dress differently, we have to talk differently, we have to act differently. And so the tension that women are having to hold in leadership positions. And then lastly, this is just a piece that I'm really grateful to Everfree. They fed back, gave access to a survey from their own national staff working with non-nationals on the ground, and this was in Uganda. And they said, you know, how is it working with non-nationals? 66% positive, 33%, I love this, rarely positive, which actually means negative, right? I love how it's framed. Most challenging aspects, miscommunication of organizational goals and direction, cultural differences in working styles, misunderstandings and conflicts due to differences in cultural values, and wait for this, the biggest mistakes made by non-nationals, Westerners, arrogant, ignorant, and making assumptions. So we need to take that on board. This is what national staff members are saying about the non-nationals. And I know that they love their non-national team leaders, but this is what they're saying. And so we need to, again, have a wake-up call to the truth that's out there. So, you know, again, not just about soliciting feedback from our own teams, but how often are we also talking to other organizations in a very honest and open context? This was actually discussed on one of the GLC calls a couple of months ago. And it was a very honest conversation. And I think that it was a shock to some to see these results. It's like, I'm not arrogant and ignorant. I don't make assumptions. Well, of course we do. And so I think that we need to own our part in all of this. Again, the full PowerPoint presentation that Everfree did for the GLC call is also going on the Hoover app. I like to make sure that we cite everything. Okay. So, our collective responsibility to create change. So I asked Tira, Asti, and Sotia to describe some words that really pertain to local leadership for them. And these were some of the words that they came up with. The words that for them were key for them as local leaders in their own context. And I just love, you can imagine doing this in the UK or in a Western context. I feel like teamwork wouldn't be the first word up there, which would be the biggest word. And I love this context because I feel that this turns a lot of the Western leadership paradigms on their heads. And I think, again, as Western leaders, we need to be able to learn and be open to learning so much from these emerging local leaders and how they reframe what local leadership looks like on the ground. So teamwork and respect, the two top ones that came up from these women. And I'm like, yeah, I want to learn from this too. So, in summary, because I want to move on to these women and our conversation around this. So, we have a collective responsibility to create change. We can walk away from this and ignore it, and the movement will be poorer for it, and our organizations will be poorer for it, and our work and our teams. Or we can take the courage to forge a new path for the future of this movement and for our organizations that we lead and work for. So one of the things, the new power, like, let's challenge ourselves within this power. New power is made by many. It's open, it's participatory, it's peer-driven, and it enhances the status and influence of others. It's a very different picture of power, right? This is the teamwork power that's in the word cloud and the respect power. And this is contributing and will contribute to a more empowered, effective, and sustainable movement and of our organizations, because this movement needs to shift. We need to have frameworks within our own organizations for giving and receiving feedback safely and acting on it so that we are held accountable to the feedback, not just receiving it and going, ooh, that was a nasty one, ooh, but that was a good one. We actually need to be responsible for acting on that feedback. And then the feedback from the national staff working with Everfree, practices for empowering collaboration. This is what came from their team members. Embrace learning. Be curious. Prioritize collective, collaborative decision making. Be aware of contextually appropriate roles and what that looks like in terms of the power dynamics. And so then maybe some of the white Westerners in the room are like, well, where is my role? Do I just like pack up and go home? So this is what some of the roles, again, this is not my suggestions, this is what came from the teams. Sharing, positioning, and transferring authority. So there is a supportive role that's needed, not just, drop, go, but actually having that as a very supportive role in transferring authority. Mentoring, that's a huge, huge need within this movement in general. Age and I were talking about this yesterday. It's a huge need. A lot of leaders, especially national leaders, are feeling massively isolated. So mentoring, consulting, guiding and supporting. And I know from having other conversations, is also being a bridge to access funding. And understanding that Western success measures are very different in other contexts. I remember, when log frames first came out, and we had to like wrap our heads around log frames. And I can remember sitting down with our team in those early days, and they were like, how did they develop this, and what, like, it was so alien just culturally as to how success is measured from this hierarchical perspective rather than a grassroots up perspective and a storytelling perspective. They're like, how do we even report on this? Because we talk to the communities and we tell stories. So understanding that those success measures don't always fit into a context here, and we need to advocate for this. And then contributing factors to positive localization in the leadership journey of change research included having a shared vision. So really considering who owns the vision of this organization. Having joint responsibility and flexibility. You know, if we are like resolute in standing on like these decisions and how they should be, and we're not prepared to be flexible, that is not going to contribute to the change. And having an exit strategy with a legacy. So really like working out, how do I step away in a way that is safe, leaves a legacy, but also hands over the authority to someone else. So let's really rally around that commitment. Let's have these conversations in our teams. Let's have these conversations with our boards. Let's have these conversations with our funders. And as Delana said, join the global learning community and have these conversations as a larger community, because everybody's got these same challenges. You're not on your own. This isn't just about you and your organization or your teams, but actually this is about everybody taking that courageous step forward to forge the new path. So now on to the best bit. So I am going to start by inviting these female leaders to come and share their personal journeys of localization and national leadership. So I'm going to start by asking Tira, who is the country director of ARM in Cambodia, to come up first. Shall I just move this down? Whoops, a daisy. Oh, you can use that one? Okay. There you go. You okay?
Easy. Yeah. Greeting everyone. My name is Tirasa from Cambodia or Rafa International. My journal to work as a leader is empower to my staff. I know I'm Cambodia. I become director for 5 years in Cambodia. It's a lot of work and experience to understand like how to be a leader. I learned so much from past 20 years to work with ARM or Cambodia. But what I learned while I am director is empower my staff. Because like Helen was said, even she's expert from England, but also I live in Cambodia. But I believe that empower generation to be a leader, it will be great. Because in one day, even I'm living in Cambodia, I maybe not stay there forever. But to empower the staff, awareness, and helping them to understand how to do with each other, helping each other, and reflection. Since I'm been director, I always want to help my staff to understand that walk away from my organization, they will have a good experience. And their good experience will be going to another place. They will use that good experience to help another people, to empower another people in their own way. And also learn about personality. So each leader have different personality. So for me, my journey, I learned so much. I have 25 managers in my under organization, and I learned so much about their personality because each personality is different, and I learned how to work with them every day, like what I should talk with them, what I couldn't talk with them, how can I respect them. Respect is really important too, because if you respect each other, it's good. Don't use your power to be like, I'm the boss. and I will do the way I can do. But start to listen. Listen what they are talk with you and respect what they decision. Empower them what they doing. And also for what I believe that in generation that the people can do their job well without me. Because without me, they can do the job. And stop human trafficking, I hope one day it will be stopped, but I know that if we have someone can do the job, can understand the job, can be empower each other, could be great. So this is what I hope and think. And also my another experience about leadership is awareness. So you aware yourself, because sometimes you think you do it right, and also you're not aware what you are doing every day. But if you aware reflection, it's okay to tell your staff, I am sorry, even that you are the boss. But it's okay to telling them, I'm sorry, I make a mistake. Let's talk together, let's move forward together. So this is my journey, and I hope today I can help you, answer you everything you want to learn from me. Thank you.
Okay, so next up, thank you, that was beautiful. I just love the whole reframing of what leadership looks like. Asti, would you like to come up next? I'm gonna...
Hello everyone. My journey into national leadership began with a deep-seated passion for social community service and a desire to create a meaningful change. And it began when I had the opportunity to meet Pak Andi Prawira from Yayasan Gerasa, a non-profit organization, who is also a friend of Dark Bali founder and our director, Ibu Dalaina May. And Pak Andi inspired me to become actively involved in a local volunteer organization called Peace Generation, where focus on social justice to serve the youth. And one of the main program is education and coaching in juvenile prison. And after about 4 years of volunteering with the program, Dark Bali was looking for a program director, and Gerasa recommended me. Then I was given the opportunity to join with Dark Bali in 2019. Okay. This role not only expanded my understanding of the challenges faced by our community, especially on the issue of human trafficking, but also taught me the importance of listening to diverse perspectives and the power of collaborative efforts. Although the issue of human trafficking was relatively new to me, with the tremendous guidance and support from my founder, then I was given the opportunity to lead several key project initiatives. That time for me was truly a continuous learning process, full mentoring and full valor. But I'm keep going. And I'm so grateful for the full trust and the support given. Although in the process was not always successful, however, it eventually led me to my current role in the national leadership. And this past January, I was promoted to be the first national director of Dark Bali, as the organization undertook the process of making sure its leadership in Indonesia remained in the hands of Indonesians. This new role has been challenging but incredibly rewarding. The opportunity to be able to collaborate and support each other with many grassroots organizations in Indonesia, and also get to meet the survivors, really inspire me to remain committed to making a positive impact through my work with Dark Bali. Thank you very much.
Okay, and last but not least, Satya, who is the country director for Bloom Asia. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Satya. I'm glad to be here with everyone this morning, and I would like to share about my journey of national leadership, and I would like to share about my challenge and what I have learned about leadership. So I have worked with Bloom Asia for about 13 years, and I began my work as financial role. I did my work in accounting and finance, and at the same time, I began mentoring survivors in our program. And at the same time, I gained a lot of skill working with people and was promoted into management roles within our organization. I have learned a lot about leadership from my founder, Ruth Lowell. She is here with us today, and my CEO, David Saxby. The work that I do each day is my mission, and it gives me a meaningful purpose. I can say that it's more than just a job. Our organization really value national leadership. They take the national leader along and empower them to do the work on the ground with passion and love to serve the mission and the survivor in our program. And they support me to become a leader on the ground. I wouldn't say yes to the position offered to me without their support. When I was promoted into the general manager role, there was a difficult thing to learn how to navigate the role change with my colleagues, because in the past we have been on the same level. I didn't want my team to feel like I was a leader who talked down to them. I wanted to maintain our friendship, but also be a leader to them. So over time, I learned how to manage those relationships. Another challenge I faced was that in the past, the beneficiary wouldn't come to the senior leader because of the language barrier. However, when I became the general manager, the young women in our program would come directly to me when they had problem or if they needed something. This created a much higher workload for me and made it hard for me to balance connection with our beneficiary, but also getting the other job done. Over time, I realized I couldn't keep going like that. So I spoke to our Khmer leadership team and empowered them to try to talk to the beneficiaries directly about their issue where possible, and to come to me for any advice or support, which has given me a lot more capacity to focus on the most serious cases. So we have seen a lot of benefits in the program. Leadership has entrusted to our Khmer team. It has given a lot more capacity to our Australian staff to be able to fundraise and grow our organization. They have connection and opportunity that don't exist in Cambodia, and they have used that to help our organization grow. I believe that when we each use what is in our hand, we have the ability to work together to build something beautiful. And over time, we are able to build an amazing team of Khmer leadership who have a heart for the mission. And together, we are able to work to create a better future for the young women in our program. Today, over 90% of our program staff are Cambodian women, and I am proud to be leading our national program. I see a lot of benefit for our beneficiaries because we speak their language and understand their culture and upbringing. In my journey on leadership, I have learned that being a leader is have to be honest, not just to your team, but to yourself. Be faithful, not just in front of people, but even if no one sees you. Accept challenge with courage, but don't be so proud of yourself, but the whole team. Respect, have an open mind and accept team idea. Create a system of trust, and clarification is very important to avoid making assumptions that your team are on the same page as you. Thank you.
Okay, and now the fun part. The fun part is we're going to take questions and have a conversation around this. I'm really fascinated to know your thoughts. And so I think Chris is going to be doing some questions for those who are online. And are we also going to run around the room for questions all online? Okay, if you have a question, please go onto the Hoover app and put it in the Hoover app, she says, doing her best Hoover impression here. Have we got any questions to start us off? Great. Do you want one of these?
Hello, hello. What are some signs that your national leaders are ready to take on a larger role?
Okay. What are some signs that national leaders are ready to take on the role? Who would like to start that one off? So what are some of the signs, do you think, that national leaders are ready to take on the role of being a director of an organization? Do you want to start that? Anybody? Do you want me to throw one in? Great. Tira. I would, while they're coming up with some responses, I would actually turn that question the other way round and say, are there any reasons why you shouldn't be exploring national leadership in your teams? Right? Because if we look at each of us, like, well, did somebody look at us and go, oh, I think you're ready to be leaders now? Or did we see a need and we actually started organizations, right? So I would turn it upside down, but let's see what you say.
I think for me, journey, I think that for culture and the language is that I could see myself be a leader, but also every country should have the same culture, the same language, so they can lead and grow with their own organization.
So I love that. So that's basically, are they a national? Are they in the same culture and the same language? Then explore leadership with that person. Yeah, of course you're doing your due diligence and you're supporting that person, but yeah, that's cool. Chris, what have we got next?
Any tips for shifting the mindset of a global board towards releasing power and positions to national leaders beyond country level, e.g. international programs and finance and CEO roles?
Yeah. So shifting the mindset of the board, did you say, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah. In releasing some of the power from the board. I honestly think that board culture is a big challenge in this movement. I'm just going to put it out there. I think that we have great people on boards, but I don't think that a lot of people on boards are good board members. And I think that one of the things is actually having a really open conversation and getting somebody from outside your organization to discuss this. And so we did that on a few different occasions, because honestly, when we did hand over to local leadership, pretty much everybody else in the organization at a board level and some of the other leaders were not supportive of it. And so I think now, we've got research. Show the research around this and give that to your board members. Put it on the agendas of your board meetings and bring somebody in who has already done leadership succession, and have them speak, whether that's the national leader or whether that's the expatriate that's already handed over. Like, bring other people into the conversation, because sometimes boards can end up in their own echo chambers, right? They just continue their own conversation and they're not really being challenged from the outside. So I would really encourage research focused and get somebody from the outside who's gone through this process before you and knows the pitfalls to actually have really honest conversations with your boards. Anything else to add? What else would you say about boards, engaging boards, helping boards to understand, like, releasing power to national leaders? Anything else about boards?
I think the board have to connect to the mission of the organization is doing too. So that I know there is a different level between the national leader and the board, but it's also, if everyone is connecting to the mission that we are doing, so that's a conversation happening based on what is the mission, what is the goal that we are doing to bring, like for my organization, we bring hope and healing together. So everything is have to be balanced in the conversation to the mission that we are doing.
That's great. Thank you, Satir. That's great. Okay, next question up, Mr. Chris.
How have you all seen expat leaders engage well with national staff in a culture where power distance is large?
Okay, how have you seen expatriates engage well with you and your staff, even when there's a big power distance in Indonesia and in Cambodia?
For me, I can see like build trust is really important, that we don't just really say that they are trusted local leadership, but they actually build trust through the financial decision making or policy, internal policy, but also related to, I think that building trust through weekly catch up as well is also helpful. Yeah.
Asti?
Maybe focus on shared goals.
Shared goals.
Yeah, keep the bigger picture in mind and focus on achieving our common goals within the board and the...
Yeah, great. Shared goals and common goals. I love that. Satir, anything else to add?
For me, I think that empower expat role and to see that they not live in the local place forever, but they should be trained people well how to do the job when after they leave the country.
Right, right. So some of the things that expatriates can do, I'm going to throw one of my questions in because I think this is a really important one to ask. What advice would you give expats on what not to do? What should expatriates not do?
I can answer it. It's unwise for expats to think that they hold all the knowledge or have all the answer and solution. That it means allow the local people to discover their capacity to identify solution and make decision. Trust the idea that they are capable to doing their own way. Do not link with your culture expectation. Teaching them your way. Avoid assuming that the boss and employee share the same culture while working together. Avoid putting yourself in higher position over local people because the color of your skin or because the work role and statute you have in your own your home country. Avoid telling local this is how you do in my country. Avoid rushing and quickly. Avoid thinking that in your job is recruit or save local people. Expect need to listen, learn how to grow to host culture, to order to develop positive working relationship with the local. It is important to understand and respect the culture. For expat who been in the country for a long time, avoid thinking that you have all learned, all there is to know about host culture and you know all the expert. Always expat is the need to listen and learn from a local people.
Boom. I think that's a mic drop moment. And I think this is being videoed. I would literally say, just play that piece of video to your teams, right? Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I would say that don't rush your people. And everything that you are doing, take the national leader along with you. And through the process, they will learn. Another thing that I would say that don't just see the result, because sometimes result is good, but staff care is really important. Because when you're taking care of your staff, when the season comes, they will produce fruit. So staff care really important. And another thing that I would say, if you are working together, don't say things against each other in front of the team, but separate your discussion quietly with them. And yeah, I think that listen and also mean what you say. I think if you can say anything and you can say all the good things, but it's really important to show your action and your honest. Thank you.
Whoa, I love this. This is fabulous. Asti.
Okay, for me, do not micromanage. Trust your colleagues and give them the autonomy to do their jobs.
Yeah.
And also do not disrespect local practices. Be sensitive to local custom and tradition. Don't try to impose your own way of doing things. And also do not focus on hierarchy. Collaboration is key. Don't rely solely on your position of authority. And lastly, do not disregard local knowledge. Local colleagues have valuable experience and knowledge to utilize it. Thank you.
Beautiful. I just think the three of you have just summed up massive lessons learned for those of us who are not local leaders. So thank you. I'm going to go back on that video later and also take note of those. So I think we've got like 1 minute. Look at that. We're in sync. Look at that. I'm impressed. Okay, I think Chris, maybe one more question.
How do you shift the mindset of Western donors to trust national leadership as the non-national steps away?
How do you shift the mindset of funders to shift to national leaders? Do you know what? I'm gonna put a pin in that, and I know that there's a conversation with donors tomorrow. I think that should go into that one. But I think that actually we also need to advocate for that. Okay, so as we finish up, as I said, we have put some recommended resources on the Hoover app. So take a look at those and have a read. Share them with your leaders, share them with your board and anybody else who you think you need to have these important conversations with. And just to say thank you, but first of all, thank you to these three fabulous local leaders, to Sotia, Tira, and Asti. Amazing, amazing, inspiring. This is the future of our organizations, and this is the future of the movement. Thank you.